When we use exercise and we measure the success of our exercise by the output, like, oh, I ran 3 miles in the same time that I did 10 weeks ago, or I lifted the same amount of weight as I did 10 weeks ago. That is like the output, like the outcome of the workout. But when you work out, you really want to think about the input. Like, what are you putting in your body?
Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
And Julie.
And we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
And Julie.
And we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. And today we have an exercise-related topic that we want to bring to you. And that's this idea of which category do you fall into? Because at least here in Illinois, the state is opening up and people are starting to be able to exercise one-on-one with their personal trainers again, as well as in group classes that are being held outdoors. But in doing so, we've noticed that a lot of people tend to fall into one of two categories. And the first category is which is over the last 10 weeks of quarantine, they've been working out consistently. They're looking strong, they're feeling good, and they're actually in really good shape. The other category is people haven't been doing that, and they've been doing a whole bunch of other stuff to try to help cope with everything that's been happening over the last 10 weeks, and their body is not feeling well. They aren't as strong as they once were. They're not feeling as good as they once were. But they know that they need to get back into exercise. So we want to talk to you about these two categories today. What to do if you're in each category in order to get back to exercising on a consistent basis, and how to start doing that now.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about this topic because, as you guys know, we've all been restricted from our gyms. I think not only like Illinois has been on lockdown for quite a while, I think the entire country has had limited access to their gyms, like these common area, like germy places where everyone's touching everything on purpose, right? And sweating on it, and then wiping their sweat with their towels, etc. But this is actually a great point because Charlie and I actually didn't think about this topic. We were talking to a friend of ours, and she said, I'm seeing my friends coming out of this quarantine in one of two places. Number one, they've been exercising and are kind of in the best shape of their lives because, everything else on their schedule has been canceled, or they've gained 20 pounds. And I think we can all relate to one or the other. Yep. Actually, I kind of feel like, I don't know, I kind of feel like I've stayed the same or stayed steady, maybe even exercise a bit more.
Well, I know that I've done more resistance training because before I would be doing it 4 days a week consistently. And, today, during quarantine, we did it every single day. So 75 days in a row. Yeah. So that I definitely increased. I know my body weight went up, which was part of my goal. So to me, that was a good thing. I felt like I was able to actually put on some mass finally, now that I'm not walking 8 miles a day around my table working on MAT clients. But from a conditioning standpoint, I feel good. Like, I feel like, in a lot of ways I stayed the same, but I also felt like I got better.
I'm anxious to get back to working on exercise machines, gym machines. And if you guys have been doing our live workouts on Facebook, we've been using all home-based stuff you find around your house. And there are some severe limitations to that, which we're going to jump into later. But I definitely know I'm excited to get back to a couple days a week weight training on actual weight machines because of the unique benefits that those provide. But anyways, if you're listening to this, you probably find yourself in one of these two categories. You're either in great shape, feeling awesome, or you're like you've exercised more than you're used to, which is cool. Right. Or you're kind of in the worst shape of your life and you've gained some weight. And you know what? I want to validate both because we're all humans, and this is a really funky, weird time we're in.
Yes.
Some of us use exercise as, a time filler, something we enjoy, something we really push into when we have time. And some of us really retreat from exercise when we're under unique, weird stresses. So it's okay if you're in both categories, because the way that you have dealt with and managed this weird situation, and will continue to manage this weird situation as we, gradually, hopefully graduate out of this, is okay. But as always, we want to look to the future and say, okay, here's where I'm at. Where am I going from here? And one thing is for certain, especially if you've been listening to our podcast for a while, you already know me and Charlie back this 100%. You must absolutely 100%, 1000% must be exercising on a regular basis. And guess what? If you take 2 months off, okay, it'd be better if you exercise those 2 months, but let's not make it 6 months. Let's not make it a year.
Exactly.
We can even talk about this. A lot of my clients, they work out with me consistently, and then they go on vacation, whether that's a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. They're always asking me, Julie, I really don't want to exercise on vacation. Do I have to? Well, here's the thing. We know that each and every day that you are inactive, you are losing a lot of health benefits, and actually your health is declining because of that. But at the same time, we know that we're humans and we're here to live the life that we want to live. So 3 weeks off of exercise is not the best, but really it's not detrimental as long as it's not a vacation for life, meaning that when the time is done, you are jumping back into it. The problem arises is when people take a break and don't get back into it. Breaks are okay. They are fine. If you need them, take them, but it's not at a lifetime of a break. That is the big emphasis. And I think that especially those of you that have taken a 2-month break, it's really time to examine and figure out how you're going to get this back into your lifestyle. Because guess what? The excuse that I've heard from a lot of my clients is that, hey, my schedule's all out of whack. I'm just not finding time to exercise, or I just need a little break. Unfortunately, the situation we're in right now with coronavirus is your schedule is going to be a little wacky for quite some time. So it's time for us to really reel in the reins with this thing, because guess what? Your kids are now on summer break, and you might not have as much office time as you used to. You might not even be on the road that much anymore. So it's time that we really take responsibility for this situation and really step up for our own health, and really take this opportunity to, get back to a healthy lifestyle, or continue this healthy lifestyle if you were already exercising consistently through this time.
Yeah, Julie, you brought up so many good points, and I think that really leads us nicely into this first segment that we want to talk about is, hey, if you haven't been exercising over the past 10 weeks or however long, how do you start getting back into exercise? Okay, how do you start getting back into some regular routine and training again in order to improve your health and the function of your body? There are so many stats that we can throw out as far as what happens when you take time off, but there are a couple stats that really jump out to me. Okay, and the first is what we find in animal studies and in human studies. And in animal studies, it shows that 1 day of inactivity leads to decreased insulin sensitivity. While in human studies, it shows that within 3 days of bed rest, we're showing decreased cardiac function, negative LDL to HDL ratio changes, as well as decreased insulin sensitivity. So that within 3 days, okay, as soon as 1 day, but definitely within 3 days, there are negative changes happening within your body with inactivity, okay? Which means, if you go on vacation for a week and you're like, oh, I don't want to exercise, guess what? You're coming back less healthy than when you left. There's no question about that, all right? The other thing that really jumps out to me from a statistic standpoint is that inactivity and chronic low levels of physical activity are more detrimental to human health and longevity than heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and smoking. Which means if you haven't worked out over the past 10 weeks, that's more detrimental to your health than heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, or smoking. Now, you can't get those 10 weeks back, but you can certainly change your actions going forward. And Julie, you hit the word on the head, and that is responsibility. Taking responsibility for your actions going forward. And so That's where we need to go with this, is how do we start exercising on a consistent basis again if we haven't been for the past 10 weeks? And step number 1, which is a step that we tell everybody across the board, you have to schedule it. It has to get put into your schedule with some frequency on some consistent basis. If you're not scheduling it, it's not getting done. If your schedule is all out of whack, that means you may not be able to exercise at the same time every single day. Or it may mean that you're not going to be able to exercise at the same time that you used to be able to exercise at. But you still have to find time to exercise throughout your week, and preferably every single day. That's a non-negotiable. And the way that we find that it gets done, no matter how busy somebody is if it gets scheduled. That is the key to making sure that you're getting your workouts in on a consistent basis, even if you've been taking the last 10 weeks off.
All right, I don't need to repeat that, but Charlie's point is one we give all the time. And it is the number one reason why people do or do not exercise, is if it's scheduled or not scheduled. The second thing is you have to find a way to be accountable. I think especially during this time, I've talked to so many people that, are separated from their gyms. This is a great time to find a small studio too, and see if you're able to work one-on-one with a trainer. I know at MAS, that is our specialty, which is one-on-one work. We do muscle activation techniques and personal training. And all of our clients actually through the quarantine were like, hey, you guys open? Because you're like the cleanest place I know. I mean, our volume is so low, meaning we don't have any groups. No one's walking around the gym. Everything is wiped before and after someone. And there's plenty of space to be at 12 feet apart if we need it to be, right? So if you need a personal trainer, or you find yourself needing a space to work out, like some people don't want to work out in their house because they're like, this isn't like the space. I get distracted. I have a kid here, I've got laundry going, all the things. Find a small studio that might be able to do one-on-one, even if it's temporary work. I mean, I think if you came to MAS, you'd probably love it, stay forever. But, that's my own opinion. Maybe find a small studio where you can work one-on-one with a trainer. You won't be around big crowds, but it's also a great way to designate space for your health, designate space for your exercise. That's one great way to be held accountable. A lot of people I talk to will be like, well, I'm not like a personal trainer kind of person. Well, guess what? Everyone wasn't at one point. And then you find out that it may or may not work for you. So be open to the idea that maybe having that kind of environment would work well for you. Plus, it's clean. I know that a lot of states, the big gyms are open. In Illinois, the big gyms are not open. So unfortunately, a lot of our colleagues are unable to serve their clients because they work in a bigger space, or they have groups, and groups are not allowed to meet right now, especially ones where you're breathing heavy on each other and perspiring on each other. Anyways, another way to be accountable is to find a group or find a workout buddy. Hey, you're still allowed to go for power walks 6 feet apart. Find a online workout to jump into. So find something that will keep you accountable, keep you excited, keep you showing up, and something that also is safe and healthy. Obviously, you don't want to be putting your health at risk while you're trying to get healthy. So make sure it's at a place where you feel safe and healthy, whether that's in your home doing some online workouts. Maybe you're able to Skype with your trainer, or Zoom meeting with your trainer. That would be a great way to keep it customized to you. And additionally, those studios that are able to be open, like Muscle Activation Schaumburg, you can definitely schedule with a trainer at a place like MAS.
Yeah, that's awesome. And because those points, that leads right into the third point that we want to make. All right, you're scheduling it, you're being held accountable by somebody else. And if that somebody else is an exercise professional, they will be able to help you with this third point, which is make sure that you are exercising appropriately for your body and progressing appropriately for your body, okay? If you've been taking the last 10 weeks off and you try to jump in right where you were at 10 weeks ago, guess what? Your body's probably not going to feel that great. So you need to start off with less than what you're doing and start to slowly progress yourself back to where you were. So where do you start? I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't know where it's appropriate for you personally as an individual right here, right now to start. But a general rule of thumb is start at 50%. What were you doing 10 weeks ago? and do half of that. Now, hopefully that feels pretty easy. And then the next time you can come in, you bump it up a little bit more. And the next time after that, you bump it up a little bit more. If the 50% feels challenging, that's okay. It just shows you that there's some work to do to get back to where you were. That's totally fine. That's no issue at all, because the name of the game is exercising on a consistent basis. So it doesn't matter where you're at today. All that matters is that whatever you do today, you're allowed to come back tomorrow and the next day and the day after that and the day after that, and continuing to exercise on a consistent basis to continue to build the health and function of your body over time. But it's going to be really important that in order to do that, you're exercising appropriately for your body and you're progressing slowly with your body. So if you want to err on the side of caution, instead of jumping back to where you were 10 weeks ago as far as your volume, as far as, so like the sets and reps you do, as far as the weights that you would use, as far as how far you would go or anything like that, start at half of the volume, half of the weight, half of the distance, whatever it is. Start at 50%, see how your body does after day one, and if it feels all right on day two, then you can do a little bit more, and then you can do a little bit more and a little bit more on top of that, and you just kind of stack these small wins, and within 3 to 4 weeks, no problem, you'll be back to where you were, okay? Back 100%, rocking and rolling, strength up, endurance up, everything feeling great. And the best part is, if you progress yourself slowly like that, then it's less likely that you're going to experience any kind of negative side effects from exercise. And that's a really important thing, because we're only able to exercise if physically we're able to do it. And so if we find that exercise is starting to beat up our body instead of build up our body, then we know we need to make a change. And one way to ensure that our exercise is building up our body and not beating up our body is by starting at less volume, less weight, less time, whatever it is that we think we can handle, and slowly progressing ourselves back to where we were.
Charlie, you bring up a good point. And while you were talking about that, I was thinking about how when you take off 10 weeks, remember you gave that example. You said when you take off 10 weeks and you jump back in and you expect that maybe you could start doing the same stuff you did 10 weeks prior, but you didn't do anything in between those 10 weeks. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about when we use exercise and we measure the success of our exercise by the output, like, oh, I ran 3 miles in the same time that I did 10 weeks ago, or I lifted the same amount of weight as I did 10 weeks ago. That is like the output, like the outcome of the workout. But when you work out, you really want to think about the input. Like, what are you putting in your body? Because running 3 miles when you're fully conditioned and running 3 miles when you're completely out of condition leaves your body in 2 different states. If you're in condition, 3 miles might be very exhilarating, very stimulating, excellent for endurance, excellent for blood flow. If you're out of condition and you do that same 3 miles, same time, same output, the input that 3 miles might have put into your body could be a lot of joint damage or a lot of muscle wear and tear. So you really have to be thinking every time I work out, it doesn't matter if it was the same thing that I did 10 weeks ago. What matters is that I'm putting positive input into my body to progress it in a positive manner. So this really applies, especially anytime you take a big break from exercise or even like a body area of exercise. Let's say like you injure your knee or something and you have to let your knee rest for a bit. When you start reintroducing your knee to exercise, or we've taken 10 weeks off of your whole body of exercising, when we are trying to reintroduce your whole body back into exercise, we always have to think about what is going into my body and how is that positive or negative for my health. And it doesn't matter what's on the outside. It doesn't matter if it was the same as what it was 10 weeks ago. It matters that it pushed your innards in the right direction, if that made sense.
And by your innards, we don't mean your gut, but I mean the inside of your body.
Yes, the health and function of your body.
So the final point that we want to bring up, if you've been taking the last 10 weeks off of exercise, is make sure to get your body tuned up by your local MAT specialist. All right. And this is a really important point. And the reason being is because you don't know the state that your body's in. You don't know how your body's functioning. You don't know what compensations or imbalances have developed over the past 10 weeks. And before you go load yourself, before you go race your body, before you go challenge your body, it's really important to get a set of professional eyes looking over you, making sure that your body is functioning well enough to start loading it, to start challenging it, to start pushing it. Okay? Because here's the thing. If you don't do that, sooner or later, what will happen is your body will start to break down from the exercises that you're doing. And you're going to get into this cycle of, we see it all the time. You're going to get into this cycle where you're exercising, you're feeling good, and then one day you're not feeling as good. You think, oh, you know what? I just need to take a little bit of time off. And then you come back to exercise and you're not feeling good again. You know, oh, maybe I need to take a little bit longer time off. And then you come back to exercise and you're feeling still not well. And you're like, okay, you know what? I need to take the next week off. I need to take the next 3 weeks off. And then all of a sudden you go the next 3 weeks and you come back and your body's still deconditioned. It is lost strength. Those imbalances are still there. You go back to work out and you still feel lousy. And then you are in that cycle of not feeling well, not exercising for an extended period of time, thinking, oh, you know, a few months later, I need to get back into it. Try to go to the gym, don't feel well, go back to not exercising. A few months later, try to get back into it, don't feel well, go back to not exercising. This is a cycle that we see when people's body doesn't feel well because they didn't get their body tuned up, they didn't get their body evaluated from an MAT specialist. So in order to avoid that, definitely schedule with your local MAT specialist. They're going to be able to tell you where your body's working well, where it's not working well. They'll be able to tune your body up and get your body back to functioning well. So when you go to exercise, when you go to work out, you can do so without the flare-ups, without the aches and pains that eventually come from exercising if your body is not working well.
Now, the reason why we have to get our muscles tuned up is usually two big reasons. Underuse. So definitely if you haven't been exercising, you've definitely been underusing your muscles, but also overuse. And what I mean by overuse is overuse, not just like your whole body, which it could be your whole body, but sometimes also specific joint motions. I've noticed that since I've been exercising every single day at home, that I've had more symptoms needing to be tuned up than if I was at a gym. And the reason being is, picture this, like every probably 3 to 5 times a week, we're doing some kind of squat-like motion in the workouts. And I probably do squats 3 to 5 times a month at the gym because the gym has a whole bunch of variety of different forces that I can do. And at home, we're a lot more limited. Okay, so I was thinking of this amazing analogy. And if it's awful, Charlie, you can just clip it out. Okay,
deal.
Okay, so think of this. There is an ice cream shop called Julie's Ice Cream Shop, obviously, and you just love going there. Have you ever been to like your specialty place, whether it's like shakes or, you know, French fries or, you know, those like little quirky places on the boardwalk or whatever, and they have like 1 or 2 really good things. So Julie's Ice Cream Shop is ice cream, but the best part about Julie's Ice Cream Shop is there's like a million bajillion flavors, okay? All the flavors you could possibly think of ice cream, and then, you know, the only specialty thing we do is chocolate syrup, right? Because we all have the quirky thing. So every time you walk in there, you're like, oh my God, it smells amazing. I'm going to taste all the flavors and then pick one. And, you know, I always ask like the scoopers, I'm like, don't you guys love it here? Like you get to work here and it's like my favorite spot ever. And then you go on and on. Well, at least I do. Like, do you guys get free ice cream scoops? How often? Every time you come in? I mean, I would have at least 3 free scoops every time because if it's offered, oh, you guys get all the ice cream. You know what I'm saying? You pester the employees about how much the ice cream they get to have, and they always come back with an underwhelming response of like, well, you know, it kind of wears off after you've worked here for 1 month. The smell, eating all the ice cream, it's overdone for them, right? Because they're constantly exposed to it, right? And so to them, they've like maxed out this whole ice cream, the smell, the chocolate, special chocolate syrup and all that stuff. But when you haven't done it that much, it's kind of fun, right? It's like, oh, I get to go to my favorite ice cream shop and get the smell and get the taste and get the chocolate syrup, and that's that. So if you talk to those employees, it's like, all right, well, if I was going to eat something, it probably wouldn't be this ice cream because I'm smelling it, eating it, tasting it all day. What I would like is to go to, a restaurant where we have all different kinds of foods, right? Like I can get the savory stuff, I can get the crunchy stuff. It's not always this sweet, creamy stuff. So where are we going with this? When we exercise in one way all the time, and right now, if you've been exercising, you've probably been exercising at home because the gyms are closed. You're getting a whole bunch of just Julie's ice cream shop, the ice cream stuff. You're doing a whole bunch of the same stimulus, a whole bunch of the same stuff. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of flavors, right? You can do squats, you can do push-ups, you can do all the home exercises. But you don't get to do any of the other stuff. Like you don't get to do any of like the savory stuff, the crunchy stuff, the non-ice cream stuff, all the other stuff that's not ice cream. Right? So when you're at the gym, what we find is that people that work out at home, they're doing a whole bunch of one style. And because of that, their bodies get overstimulated. They get kind of overworked and kind of sick of working out that way, kind of like the employees at the ice cream shop. What we want to see is that your body has a whole bunch of variety of stimuluses. And so a lot of times when people go from just working out at home, meaning working out in only one type of manner, even though there's a bunch of flavors, there's a bunch of exercises you can do at home, they're all ice cream. When we are able to go back to the gym and expose them to all different styles of exercise and all different force profiles and resistance profiles and joint angles and forces on the joints, that's kind of stuff that you probably don't study because or else then you'd be a trainer. But all the stuff that trainers think about when we're using machines with people or different band opportunities that you can't get at home or are really, really hard to get at home. And so when you're transitioning from the home exercises, as like what I've been feeling with my workouts, is that I've been a lot more sore and achy because my body's just getting sick of doing the same stuff all the time. It's like all I'm feeding my body is this ice cream. It's like, come on, we need some steak, we need chicken, we need vegetables, we need the crunchy. We need all the different flavors, and that's what keeps it balanced. Okay, did that make sense?
I like the analogy. We'll keep it.
It was like I was thinking about it. I was like, man, remember when you go on vacation and there's like that specialty shop and you're like, sure, man, if I just lived here, I would be in heaven. And then you think like at the end of your 10 minutes of being there, you're like, okay, I'm sick of this smell.
No, I love it. We're definitely keeping that one.
All right.
Okay, so those are our tips. If you haven't been exercising consistently over the last 10 weeks, you feel like you've fallen off the wagon. But we also need to talk about the flip side, all right? Because if you have been exercising really consistently, either because you've been off of work, you've had the time availability to, or you just like working out at home, and now there's all these at-home options popping up, awesome. But if you decide that now that you're going back to work or your availability gets less, or you're going to start working out at the gym, now all of a sudden that changes things a lot for you as far as how frequently you can exercise or what you can do while you're exercising or how your body will respond to the exercise. So we got to talk about that side as well, because it's awesome that you're coming in really good shape, but there's this transition happening now. So how can you push through this transition and make sure that you're still able to exercise on a consistent basis? So to recap the last 4 points, we had schedule it, find somebody to hold you accountable or some way to stay accountable. Make sure that you are progressing your body slowly. And number 4 was get your body tuned up from your MAT specialist. All right. If you haven't been working out on a consistent basis, those are the 4 things we want you to do. If you have been working on a consistent basis, the 4 things we want you to do are to schedule it, find somebody to hold you accountable, progress your body slowly back into it, and get your body tuned up by your MAT specialist. And you might be sitting there thinking, how can that be? How can it be that the same tips for the people that weren't working out need to be the same tips for the people that have been working out? And here's why, all right? If your schedule is changing now, it is of the utmost importance to still schedule your exercise. That's how you're still going to make sure that you get it in as you transition back to working out in a gym or working out with your trainer, something like that. It is so huge to make sure, even if you've been really consistent with your exercise, to maintain that consistency. And the number one thing you can do without question is to schedule it.
Plus, a lot of y'all that have been exercising all the time, the reason is because you got nothing else to do. Now you got other stuff to do, so make sure it's scheduled. Our next point, accountability, which we already covered in the previous point, but if you have been really exercising consistently, making sure you're staying accountable to keeping this variety, right? So it's like you're jumping back into the gym. Make sure you have someone or a way to stay accountable, whether you can stay accountable to yourself, and really make sure you're getting in that variety part with the exercise of returning back to the gym and not just doing home workouts.
Perfect. The third tip, again, was progress your body slowly back into exercising how you were before, okay? If you've taken 10 weeks off from the gym, even if you have been exercising on a consistent basis, you still need to progress your body back slowly. You may not need to start back at 50% of where you're at, but maybe 70 to 80% might be a good benchmark for the first time you get back and are using the machines or working out with your trainer. That may be a good benchmark for the amount of weight that you're using or the amount of volume that you do on that first day back or for that first week back. And then you might find that after a week, you're back to where you were, all right, from a strength perspective. But even if you've been exercising on a consistent basis, there are different adaptations that have happened within your body over this 10-week period that you need to make sure you respect in order to ensure that you don't get negative responses from exercising now in a different way, in a different manner, or in a different setting, using different tools and different challenges than you were before.
I always want to say that exercise machines almost challenge the muscles in a more thorough way than what you can do with just body weight or stuff at home. So a lot of times the stimulus at the gym might be more thorough. And so it's new, right? It's like 10 weeks new at least. So just because you've been exercising at home, again, just be mindful, because the last thing we want to advise you to do is go to the gym and then you are hobbling around for a week or two because you really smashed it on that first exciting workout back at the gym.
Definitely. And then finally, to wrap up with our fourth point, get your body tuned up by your local MAT specialist. Like Julie was saying, underuse can be super detrimental to muscle function, but so can overuse, all right? And if you're coming in and you feel like, wow, I'm in better shape now than I have been for the past 20 years, that's awesome. We commend you for that. It is a tremendous accomplishment to be able to get to that level. But here's the thing. You still may have developed some asymptomatic imbalances along the way. And the difficulty of the situation right now is because they're asymptomatic and you're not noticing them, and you feel like you're in better shape than you've been in a long time, you're going to go to the gym and you're going to push it. And you're going to push it. And even if you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to listen to your third tip. I'm going to progress myself back slowly. Eventually, you're going to start pushing it, okay? And if you push it past the point that your body can handle, that's when you're liable to get injured. That's when you're liable to feel not well. That's when you're liable to have your joints feeling achy, your muscles feeling sore, okay? And so in order to mitigate the likelihood of that happening, getting your body tuned up by your MAT specialist when you're currently feeling well, when you currently feel like you're in great condition, can prove to be tremendously beneficial in order to make sure that you're able to continue to exercise on a consistent basis at whatever level you want to work out at.
And Charlie, that last point is so important, because it's like when we feel like we're doing really well or we're in really good shape, it's when we feel like we've got the green light to go, which it definitely is. But it also means that you need, the support so that your body isn't breaking down as you do that. But I was just thinking about this when you were talking, because I was thinking, some people, so I think maybe a very small percentage of the population would say, I'm in better shape leaving quarantine because I'm stronger, I'm running faster, I'm more conditioned, I'm more mobile. Those properties. I think most people coming out of quarantine, if they say they're in better shape than when they began, it's because of weight, which has nothing to do with muscle function at all. So if you are saying, yeah, I'm much better shape than I was going into it because I lost a bunch of weight, if that's not coupled with I'm stronger, I'm more functional, I'm more mobile, I'm more conditioned. However you're defining in shape other than weight, you're going to need a tune-up, because just because you've lost weight does not mean that your body is more prepared to handle forces, which is exactly what exercise is. So just keep that in mind. And I commend you. If you left quarantine and you've lost weight, amazing, great job, great work. But weight loss and muscle function and body function and ability to handle forces, handle exercise, handle stressors are worlds apart. So be mindful of that when you're assessing your quote unquote fitness after this quarantine.
That's awesome. That is such a great point, Julie. So to recap, all right, if you're leaving quarantine right now, it's likely that you may fall into one of two categories. Either you didn't do much over the last 10 weeks and you feel like your health and your function and your strength are on the decline, or you've done a lot over the last 10 weeks and you feel like you're in better shape than you've been in a long while. Either way, whichever category you fall into, there are 4 things we need you to do to transition back to exercising on a consistent basis and in a sustainable manner for yourself. First and foremost, you need to schedule your exercise. Number 2, find somebody to hold you accountable, whether it's a friend, whether it's a group, or whether it's a professional like a personal trainer. Number 3, progress your body slowly back to where you were before quarantine. Okay. Now, if you're saying, well, I'm in better shape than I was before. Okay, cool. Still, as you get back into working out in a gym setting, progress your body slowly. And number 4, get your body tuned up by your local MAT specialist to make sure that your body stays feeling well, it stays functioning well, and it allows you the opportunity to continue to exercise on a consistent basis so you can continue to do all the things you love to do in life for as long as you want to do them. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is leaving quarantine in one of those 2 categories? Not so great a shape or really great shape? Share this episode with them so they can hear about the 4 things they need to be doing in order to make sure they're able to exercise on a consistent basis, getting out of quarantine. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find us when they are looking for podcasts on exercise and when they're looking for podcasts on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.